Picture yourself on Hungary's plains in 1241. You're a battle-hardened knight for King Bela, expert in European war. Then, a dark line appears. It's faster than any army. The ground trembles. Beneath thousands of hooves, your commander sounds uncertain. Few survivors exist, but their story is the same. These invaders are the Mongols. They seek destruction. So, why did no one want to fight them? Your kingdom will be entirely destroyed. When they attack, expect an explosion of coordinated violence so precise and overwhelming it will feel like confronting not an army, but a force of nature. Forget Hollywood portrayals or romanticized tales. This is the stark reality of facing history's most successful military force. These warriors conquered more territory in just 25 years, far surpassing Rome's 400-year expansion. Let's remove the legends and examine the cold, hard truth behind their terrifying prowess. Mongol military dominance traces back to a man named Temujin, born about 1162. The Mongolian steppe wasn't a single nation. It was a patchwork of warring tribes caught in endless raiding and vengeance cycles. Temujin's father suffered poisoning when the boy reached age 9. His family's clan abandoned them, leaving them to starve on the unforgiving steppes. Most children in such circumstances likely would have perished. However, Temujin survived via cunning and ruthlessness, along with an overlooked talent for forming alliances. By 1206, employing brilliant diplomacy and savage warfare, he successfully united the Mongol tribes under one banner. At a Kurultai gathering, he was proclaimed Genghis Khan, the universal ruler. Genghis didn't just unite the tribes, he deeply transformed them, taking warriors who once fought for personal glory and family honor, forging them into something the world had never witnessed. A professional army structured by merit, not bloodline. A peasant capable of right and shooting might rise to command. Conversely, a nobleman failing in battle could be demoted to the lowest ranks. This system proved revolutionary. European armies were led by aristocrats inherited their positions. Chinese armies, for instance, were commanded by scholars. Mongol armies, however, were led by men who won battles. No other change heralds a new era of warfare, quite like promotion based on pure competence regardless of ancestry. The Mongols lived under a code called the Yassa, Genghis Khan's law, which governed all military and civilian life. Absolute obedience was demanded. Cowardice in battle resulted in execution, not only for the individual, but potentially his entire unit of 10. This created a system where each warrior was accountable for his brother's performance. Discipline was enforced with rigorous precision. A unit-breaking formation without orders literally faced decimation. 1 man out of 10 was executed by his own comrades. Any soldier abandoning a wounded comrade faced death. A commander failing a mission could lose rank irrespective of prior victories. However, the Yassa also safeguarded its warriors. Loot was distributed equitably based on rank and contribution. Widows and orphans of fallen soldiers received community support. Mandatory religious tolerance was enforced. No Mongol could ever face punishment for their faith. This system fostered loyalty exceeding mere fear. These warriors weren't simply obeying orders. They belonged to a system that rewarded success and safeguarded their families. From the time a Mongol boy could walk, he learned to ride. At just 3 years old, he was on horseback. By age 5, he was learning to shoot a mounted bow. Nearing adolescence, he could hit targets at full gallop, sleep in the saddle, and navigate by stars while riding through night. This wasn't merely military training. This constituted their fundamental way of life. European knights underwent war training. Mongol warriors, conversely, were born into it. The composite bow they carried was truly an engineering masterpiece. Crafted from layers of horn, wood, and sinew, glued and shaped over years, it could launch arrows over 300 yards, powerful enough to pierce armor up close. Its draw weight often surpassed 160 pounds, roughly double an English longbow's. They could fire it accurately at full gallop, forward, backward, or to either side. A Mongol cavalryman released arrows in any direction, while his horse maneuvered at speeds that European cavalry couldn't match. Imagine fighting an enemy capable of shooting you from 300 yards away, all while moving faster than your own horse can run. Then you begin to grasp the real problem. Their horses were notably small Mongolian ponies, standing merely 12 to 14 hands high, barely larger than modern ponies. Yet, what they lacked in size, they made up in endurance and toughness. They survived on grass that would starve a European warhorse. They endured temperature extremes from summer heat to Siberian winter. They could travel 50 to 60 miles daily and repeat it. Here's the critical detail. Every Mongol warrior brought multiple horses, usually 3 to 5 remounts per person, with some estimates suggesting up to 7. This meant that while a European knight rode one exhausted horse, the Mongol constantly switched to fresh mounts. When necessary, and this may seem too strange, but is well documented, a Mongol warrior could make a small incision in his horse's neck, drink its blood for nourishment, then seal the wound and continue riding. This removed any need for traditional supply trains. A Mongol army had no vulnerable baggage to protect, no slow logistics hindering their operational range. The Persian chronicler Atamalik Juvaini wrote that a Mongol warrior could ride for 10 days without lighting a fire for food, sustaining himself on horse blood and dried meat. They carried all essentials on their person: bow, arrows, lasso, dried curds, and dried meat strips. Nothing demonstrates operational efficiency quite like an army capable of invading your kingdom without needing a lunch break. Now, let's discuss their armor, as this is often misunderstood about the Mongols. They were not lightly armored savages at all. Mongol heavy cavalry wore lamellar armor, constructed from small plates of hardened leather or iron, interlaced with leather cord. This provided flexible protection capable of stopping arrows and sword cuts, while still allowing the mobility essential for their unique fighting style. Their helmets were typically built from iron segments, riveted together, often featuring a pointed top to deflect blows and cheek guards for facial protection. Some warriors wore silk shirts beneath their armor, not for comfort, but because penetrating arrows would wrap silk around the arrowhead, thereby making the wound simpler to treat by pulling the fabric out. Their shields were small and round, crafted from wicker or leather. They were designed for mobility, not shield walls like those of European infantry. The Mongols had no interest in standing and blocking. They aimed for movement, shooting, and destroying the enemy before any close quarters melee range. For close combat, they carried sabers, curved swords optimized for slashing from horseback. Maces and axes were also common, highly effective against armored opponents. They also carried lassos. Yes, actual lassos, used to drag enemy knights from their horses with disturbing effectiveness. Imagine a European knight in full plate armor, the pinnacle of advanced combat innovations, getting lassoed just like livestock and yanked off his battle. Steered by wanderers, he dismissed as backward. Its psychological toll proved devastating. During battle, the Mongols served as precise agents of ruin. Their typical army structure was organized using a decimal system, comprising 10, 100, 1,000, and 10,000 soldiers. This permitted intricate field tactics, which were unfeasible for feudal armies where knights vied for personal, individual glory. Mongol battle tactics usually commenced with reconnaissance. Agile horsemen would scout the adversary, gauging reactions and pinpointing flaws. Next, the main army would progress in varied columns, employing the landscape for an approach from unforeseen directions. The heavy cavalry was kept for later. The light cavalry, carrying formidable composite bows, would torment the foe from afar, unleashing arrows while remaining safely beyond the range of enemy retaliation. When their opponents charged forward, the Mongols performed their renowned deceptive withdrawal. This wasn't genuine panic. Instead, it was orchestrated warfare. The agile horsemen would pivot and flee, seeming defeated. The foe, convinced of their victory, would break their ranks to chase. Their steeds grew weary, their ranks fell into disarray, and they extended themselves into an exposed column, which is when the snare would spring shut. The withdrawing Mongols would abruptly wheel around, releasing projectiles rearward while mounted, utilizing a method known as the Parthian shot. Concurrently, heavy cavalry, concealed in low-lying areas, would assault the now chaotic enemy flanks. Extra agile horsemen would encircle the foe's formation, firing from every direction while remaining agile enough to evade counterattacks. It proved catastrophic and achieved success against all foes. Han foot soldiers, equipped with crossbows and spear arrays, Iranian horsemen, wearing robust armor and wielding lengthy lances, European knights, widely regarded as the finest fighters across Christendom, Rus princes, leading combined troops of horsemen and foot soldiers. The year 1223 featured a major conflict at the Khalkha River. Mongols confronted an alliance of Rus princes, leading a force estimated at 80,000 soldiers. Mongolians, perhaps 20,000 strong, employed a deceptive withdrawal to lure the Rus into a 9-day chase across the steppes. By the time the snare activated, the Rus' horses were worn out. Their supply routes extended to their limits, and their troops spread thinly in an exposed march formation. The Mongols wiped them out. Of the 80,000 Rus' soldiers who launched the campaign, under a tenth made it out alive. The Mongol losses were slight. Nothing truly shows tactical advantage like reducing an 80,000 strong force to a historical triviality by merely making them pursue you until their self-defense capabilities were completely gone. In 1241, during the Mohi battle, Mongols confronted the Hungarian forces led by King Bela IV. Hungarian troops established a strong encampment beyond the Saro River, its single bridge fiercely guarded. It seemed unassailable. Mongol forces assailed the bridge at first light with a head-on attack, loud and clear, pulling all Magyar defenders to that spot. As the Hungarians concentrated on guarding the bridge, a Mongolian force forded the waterway further up the river and hit the Magyar encampment from the rear. The Magyars found themselves encircled. Their strong defenses turned into a snare. When they attempted to escape, the Mongols intentionally kept one exit path open, a road heading west. Magyar forces surged out in a disarrayed frenzy, and then the Mongol nimble horsemen chased them many miles, killing them off as they sprinted. It felt not combat, but simply a chase. Scores of thousands of Magyars were killed. The realm suffered such complete ruin that recovery took generations. These Mongolians unveiled a horrifying truth. Their strategic thinking was advanced in ways that continental leaders utterly failed to foresee. Yet Mongolians weren't merely fighters, they also served as experts in psychological operations. Before assailing a city, they dispatched envoys presenting terms: capitulate at once, and your life will be preserved. Resist, and every inhabitant within your walls shall be annihilated. This was no idle warning. When the Nishapur city defied them in 1221, Mongol forces took control and then methodically wiped out every single resident and animal. They allegedly beheaded the deceased and piled craniums into pyramids to serve as a warning. Persian chronicler Juveni noted that the offspring of the deceased Mongol leader individually supervised the killings, to confirm nobody was saved. Word got around more rapidly than any military force could move. Fighting is pointless. Capitulation is your sole chance for survival. Many cities, upon receiving news of resistors' fate, simply opened their gates without a fight. The Mongols achieved victories without combat, seizing cities without any prolonged siege. Their reputation traveled ahead of them, similar to a spreading plague. The 1241 Liegnitz engagement saw Mongol forces confronting a joint contingent of Polish knights, Germanic crusaders, and Livonian Order cavalry, Europe's most elite armored horsemen. The Europeans they anticipated a standard fight. What they received was truly distinct. Mongol forces deployed genuine smokescreens, formed by ignited materials that produced dense dark mists, designed to conceal their advances. They utilized drums and general clamor to foster disorder. As the Continental cavalry finally attacked, they realized they hit not the true Mongol military, but a decoy unit that promptly withdrew. The knights chased them relentlessly until their mounts became utterly exhausted and their ranks were utterly shattered. Subsequently, Mongolian armored horsemen hit their sides, as nimble cavalry surrounded and gunned them down like bullseyes on a firing ground. Europe's most distinguished knighthood ultimately met its end. Mongolian forces amputated the ears of the fallen to tally opponent losses. Allegedly, they stuffed 9 big bags containing only ears from Leibniz. Nothing conveys professional military accounting better than needing many bags for opponents' remains for their post-battle analysis. Their information collection was just as advanced. Mongolian agents infiltrated target realms years before any invasion, mapping terrain, identifying political splits, and noting cities that were rich or well defended. Traders, voyagers, and detained captives were methodically questioned for intelligence. Upon the Mongol invasion, their knowledge of the landscape was superior to the defenders. They understood exactly which waterways were passable and where. They knew which mountain routes were traversable during winter. They understood which cities held the greatest spoils and which strongholds could be circumvented. Continental forces frequently entered engagements with very scant information on phone numbers or deployments. Mongolian armies entered engagements with precise knowledge of all opposing forces, their exact deployments, their overall logistical situation, and plus which internal political divisions might cause their alliance to shatter under duress. Their capabilities for sieges were highly developed. When Mongol forces initially faced Han settlements featuring colossal defenses, they adjusted. They compelled Chinese and Persian engineers to work for them, acquiring complex assault methods. They deployed mangonels, catapults, and assault towers. They rerouted waterways to weaken walls. They constructed inclines to breach strongholds. During the 1258 Baghdad siege, Mongols led by Hulagu Khan deployed sophisticated assault machinery and technical expertise that utterly overwhelmed a leading metropolis in the Islamic realm. The Abbasid Caliphate, existing for over 500 years, succumbed within 2 weeks. The urban area was so completely razed that the Tigris River purportedly flowed dark with ink from obliterated texts and stained crimson with gore from slaughtered inhabitants. Yet possibly the most frightening characteristic of the Mongols involved their supply and tactical range. They could operate for years extensively far from their native lands at once. These forces managed to synchronize forces operating hundreds of miles distant, timing their assaults to strike concurrently. Genghis Khan's 1219 invasion of the Khwarezmian Empire saw him divide his troops into numerous formations, which acted autonomously across a front extending over 1,000 miles. These units kept contact through a complex messenger network of horseborne couriers who could travel more than 200 miles within a single day. During that era, European military forces often struggled to coordinate units operating even within a single valley. In contrast, Mongol forces orchestrated continent-spanning expeditions. Such an unparalleled level of organizational sophistication was truly evident when one considers their ability to conduct a transcontinental military operation using medieval technology, making it seem effortless. Their courier network, the YAM, proved so remarkably efficient that its speed remained unrivaled until the telegraph was invented. Key routes featured stations situated every 25 to 30 miles, where new horses and riders always stood readily available. Consequently, dispatches were able to traverse the vast empire in mere weeks rather than months. As a result, Mongol commanders were able to quickly relay information to the Great Khan in Mongolia, obtain fresh directives, and modify their strategic approaches. Meanwhile, European kings were still attempting to discern what transpired beyond the borders of their own realms. Furthermore, their policy of religious tolerance was also leveraged as a strategic asset. Their leaders were unconcerned with your deity, provided you followed their mandates. This policy permitted them to draw expertise from each society they subjugated. Talented individuals included Christian builders, Islamic managers, Buddhist mentors, and Chinese experts in fortifications. These individuals joined the Mongol Empire because its leaders assessed them based on skill, not religious conviction. Concurrently, European crusaders fractured their forces due to various religious contentions, while Islamic states suffered self-inflicted damage through their sectarian disputes. In contrast, the Mongols merely recruited the most capable individuals and directed them against their adversaries. At times, the most profound military innovation is simply to disregard elements that have no bearing on combat effectiveness. So, why was fighting a Mongol warrior something everyone wished to avoid? Because engaging them involved confronting an adversary capable of striking from 300 yards away, all while outpacing your charging horse. Could charge. They were a foe who would feign retreat, drawing you into fatigue, then brutally kill you when you lacked all self-defense capabilities. They were a foe with abundant horses, optimized supply chains, an exceptional reconnaissance, and strategic agility beyond the grasp of European commanders. This opponent would extend a single opportunity to surrender, and if that offer was declined, they would utterly wipe out your entire city with such ferocity that other towns chose to yield instead of facing a comparable doom. This was a foe capable of orchestrating military forces over vast continents, while your efforts failed to organize troops beyond a mere single province. Still, the Mongol forces proved not to be unconquerable. They experienced military losses and endured setbacks. Their fleet, designed for invading Japan, was twice wrecked by a powerful typhoon. They were overcome by the Mamluks at Ain Jalut during the year 1260. In Vietnam, their progress was stalled by guerrilla warfare within the jungle, an environment where their cavalry strategies were useless. However, victory against them called for impeccable conditions, outstanding leadership, along with substantial losses. Furthermore, a hard-won triumph against them often saw the Mongols reappear, bringing a stronger army and superior strategies, having gained insights from their earlier loss. Over the period of 1206 to 1240, the Mongol Empire established the biggest unbroken landmass in recorded history. In its heyday, this vast empire extended from Korea through to Hungary, spanning from Siberia south to Vietnam. Its dominion encompassed around 24 million square kilometers, equaling almost a quarter of the globe's land surface. This was not achieved by mere fortune or having greater numbers. Their success came from pioneering tactics, fierce discipline, outstanding supply management, psychological warfare, along with their readiness to evolve and acquire wisdom from each foe they encountered. If you encountered a Mongol fighter, you were confronting something beyond a mere person. Instead, you were challenging a military framework perfected through decades of relentless combat. This force possessed the ability to ride faster, shoot further, move more skillfully, and persist longer than you. These were fighters who had undergone training from an early age to engage in combat on horseback, bringing numerous horses into conflict, whereas you came with only a single one, and who could subsist for weeks without external supply chains, while your army relied on food wagons following its progress. And these realities, more so than any legendary story, clarify why no one desired to fight them. While their vast empire eventually splintered after the passing of Genghis Khan in 1259, subsequently forming rival khanates, which eventually collapsed from internal conflicts and external pressures. Nevertheless, for more than half a century, the Mongol armies were truly unassailable. Their prowess set the bar for all other armed forces, which often failed to meet it. An impressive feat for a collective of wanderers originating from the steppes. We appreciate your attention.